Okay, I'll go ahead and start with
Great.
excellent. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I am Shannon Jones, and I will be your moderator for the session today. It is my pleasure to welcome Meghan Kowalski, who will present Amplifying Others, How to Promote the People on Your Team. Before we get started today, I want to go over a few logistical items with you. First and foremost, this session is being recorded. Captions are available during this session by clicking the Live CC button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Thanks to Jason Cunningham for providing these. Please use the Q&A feature for any presentation questions. You can choose to do this anonymously. There will be a 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the session for Q&A, and so you can hold your questions till then. Please use the chat for general comments or technical issues. Billy Carterman will be monitoring the chat for any questions and comments. Billy also will be adding links to the chat box, so be on the lookout for those. One of the links that she's going to add is for the collaborative resource sharing. If you think of, as Meghan is presenting, if you think of a related reading, a podcast, a video, or something else, please feel free to share it with us on the COMS recommended resources shared Zotero. The next link that you'll see in the chat box is the conference code of conduct. The link will be there. You can go review it in the event that there's any incident, you know what to do or who to contact in the event that something comes up. And with that, I will turn the mic over to Meghan.
Right, everyone. Just want to confirm that you are seeing my screen. All right, great. So welcome everyone, particularly those coming in from the West Coast, and this is your first thing in the morning. I hope you have coffee. So thank you for coming today to Amplifying Others, How to Promote the People on Your Team. My name is Meghan Kowalski, and I am the Outreach and Reference Librarian at the University of the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. My pronouns are she, her. Prior to this position, I was the head of preservation over at the Catholic University of America libraries across town, and I've held positions in both public and technical services. And while I don't currently supervise anyone right now, I have previously supervised a whole bevy of student employees and also some full-time teams. But you don't have to be a supervisor to amplify others in your area. So let's get started with a little bit of engagement. Now, I'm going to drop a link in the chat to a Padlet, or you can use the QR code on the screen if that is easier. So please share a story of when you promoted the work of someone on your team, either someone you are a supervisor for or someone who you just work with. And then why did you do it? Why did you share that work of someone on your team? So I'll give it a few seconds. And the link is in the chat. We will jump on over now. If you haven't used a Padlet before, you can go ahead and just click this box right here and add your information. See, we got people logging in. Always those hard moments waiting for people to type. It's like teaching a class and you're waiting for someone to answer a question. Retweeted an article written by a colleague because I admire and respect their work. I wanted to highlight their work to our administration. It was good work. I wanted to share it because it's the right thing to do. Yes. One of my staff members was doing interesting research and I wanted the rest of the library to know about it. Yes. This is all great stuff. They were a good fit for a committee and I nominated them. Now they're all coming in very fast. Nominated various people for awards on campus and outside the university. Yes. Proud. Yes. They were not feeling appreciated. Yeah. To use their strengths and retain them as an employee. Yes. A lot of these are going to touch on what I'm going to talk about. And so the reason I wanted to share this, and there's a ton of great stuff coming in. Wow. You all type very fast. Praise their customer service skills. Yes. I knew this person was growing their CV and work profile. Yes. I gave a shout out to my colleague at the end of an announcement I gave in a meeting to recognize their hard work. Yes. This is all great stuff. And I'm going to leave it up in case people want to add any more, but I just want to make sure we leave plenty of time for Q&A. But please go back and look at these at the end, partly because it's always so wonderful to see people sharing information. And the reason I wanted to start with this easy Padlet is I wanted to start by showing that many of us are already doing this, so we can continue what we're doing and grow on that. And so let's be honest, for the most part, we are really bad at promoting ourselves in general, but particularly as a profession. If we do share about our work, it tends to be within library circles and not on a broader basis. And there is partly a gendered basis for this. Women are socialized not to boast. It comes across as bragging, and we can also be called power hungry and egotistical. This can also be racialized. Minoritized populations are socialized not to make waves, lest they upset the boat of how things have always been done. Yes, someone put in the comments, it's hard to toot our own horn. That's exactly correct. So think about the last time you promoted yourself. I am certain you are awesome, but what did it feel like when you had to promote yourself? How did you feel while you were doing that? And just go ahead and drop that in the chat. I know the few times I've promoted myself, we're a small library here, and within my own group, it's easy to do because we all work very closely together. We're very collegial. It's easy. But promoting myself outside of the library, even though I am the outreach librarian, can be difficult. It feels, like, is this right? Am I doing it? Am I stepping on someone else's toes? Yeah, someone said, I'm uncomfortable. It's like pulling teeth. I cringe. It's painful. I tend to wait for the really big stuff. It can feel awkward. Yes, it can feel like boasting. And if this is how you feel, someone who knows you're awesome, it is likely worse for the people on your team. It is likely worse if you're a supervisor for your employees simply because of the power dynamics. You are not just a manager or a supervisor or a colleague. You should be a cheerleader for the people on your team. But before we get into this, I do want to lead with a note of caution to consider the person in front of you. Some of this work of promoting others must be opt-in, and it should be handled delicately. Some people just do not like to be talked about by others, and you have no business asking why. Some people have hard boundaries between work and their outside life, between their scholarship and their professional work, and that must be respected. So if you want to share something and you are at all uncertain if you should promote that person's work, first ask to share. Always ask permission first if you are at all uncomfortable, or if you are at all uncertain about if that person would be comfortable having that information shared. So why don't people promote themselves? And there are lots of reasons, but the four biggies are here. And the first one is hierarchies. They don't think they are in a position to promote themselves outside of their department, or in some cases, even within their department. The bigger the department, the harder it is sometimes to think, is this my position here? Can I do this? And that's related to office politics. This is a game that most of us, and I would argue almost all of us, hate, but it is constant. People who promote their work or the work of others are often seen as offenders of bad office politics, because instead of just sometimes it's seen as, oh, if I promote them, they must want something out of it. People start to wonder, why are they doing this? What's in it for me? And it can feel like trades are being made when you're trying to share information. And that comes across as bad office politics. And it is what it is. Every office has it. There's also imposter syndrome. At some point, we all feel like we're faking it. We can be excellent at our job and still feel like we're waiting for people to notice our faults. Promotion of good work comes with attention, and some people are afraid that that attention will uncover weaknesses. And then it just doesn't feel right. Many of you have mentioned it just feels icky to do. There are emotions wrapped up in promoting good work, and those can be hard to work through. So what's the harm in not promoting the good work of others? And there are harms. Some are big and some are small. But in hiding our team's strengths, we are inadvertently harming our employees or harming those we work with. First, credit doesn't get shared. It's as simple as that. If people don't know good work is getting done, that credit doesn't get shared. There can also be stagnation, both on a personal level and on a team level, because it hides skills and opportunities for growth and innovation. It also promotes silos by keeping skill sets in one specific area or department. And that can stymie workflows. One person in, a department might have a really good idea for another department, and that idea wouldn't be shared. And it also ignores the whole person. We are people with achievements. We are people with achievements both inside and outside of the office. And not recognizing that by promoting the good work of others, we're just kind of ignoring that we are someone beyond the cog of how we fit within our work. And so how do we start? Well, first you got to learn about your team. So first, make it okay. Brag about yourself and ask about others, to share alike in meetings or in emails. Start small and work your way up to this. You can say, I can say, I presented at the TILC conference with a colleague last week. What else was happening? Who wants to share? And you can do this by always, always, always asking for feedback, for input, for stories, and for idea sharing. In those meetings, you can get the ball rolling by asking 5 simple questions. The first being, what's going on? What's happening? Then, what do you like about your work? Follow that up with, what do you not like about your work? This gives you a sense of what people see working within the office and not working with the office. And then you can ask, what do you want to be working on? A lot of people have ideas, but they won't ease into working on those ideas if they're not given the opportunity. And then if you're a supervisor, you can ask, what can I do better? Because that can help you learn how the person you are working with prefers to be promoted or prefers to be talked about. Most importantly, when you're, starting these conversations, listen when people talk and make notes for later. Just because they say something in that meeting doesn't mean you need to share it right away. You can save it for when the opportunity is a better situation or a better fit. And then you can also ask for permission to share what you learn. This can be in the moment or after the fact. So if you hear someone did something great and there's a staff newsletter coming up, you can go back to them and say, hey, remember when you told me that you finished your first marathon? Would you like me to put that in the staff newsletter? And then when people are comfortable, you can make this, part of your learning routine and in an ongoing process where you can create these moments for sharing within public spaces. You can create surveys or feedback collection spots. You can ask for call outs for information for office communications. I run our internal staff newsletter, and every month I always start by emailing people to be like, hey, can you brag about yourself or your staff for this month's staff newsletter? And then you can just ask in meetings in general, would anyone like to share an achievement, a project win, something they've accomplished, both inside and outside of the office that they think would be worth sharing? So, promoting your team. This is where you get to be a cheerleader. This can be a lot of fun. So I'm going to share some methods for doing this. Some may not work for your office culture because sometimes that culture needs to change, but sometimes you have to work within the culture that exists. Small organizations are different from big organizations. You know your office politics best. So always keep that in mind when you're looking at some of these methods for promoting your team. So start with what works for you and then grow from there. So first things first, you can share up. Simply state it was so-and-so idea. If someone in your office came up with a good idea, share it, share up. Do not take credit for your team's good ideas. If you're a supervisor, you can say, yes, this is what my department did, but it was these 2 specific people's idea. Give them credit. This can be done in a one-on-one setting. This can be done in general meetings, but just be constant about sharing up achievements, sharing up good ideas. Next, you can repeat what they said. So within meetings, you can say, I would like to know what so-and-so said, and then give them a chance to share and expand further on that idea. This has taken on new life in intersectional action, mainly to promote the ideas in minoritized employees that are often overlooked, ignored, or attributed to white male colleagues. So you have to do this a lot. You can go back to in meetings and say, to get back to what, Sheila said, or I want to reiterate what Rick said. Can we go back to hear what Eleanor said? Always throw back to the person who had that original comment, original idea, and you might have to do this multiple times. In a lot of office environments, there's one person or two people who tend to dominate meetings and steal ideas for their own, and you can just throw back to the person who had that original idea and reiterate it. And you do this because you want to give your team members the opportunity to talk for themselves. So while yes, you want to promote what they said, you want to give them the chance to actually speak, give them the space to, promote their own work. Next, you can simply do some story sharing. Did you know? This can happen in meetings, this can happen at staff events, this can happen in interoffice communications. We connect emotionally with stories, and this helps us see the bigger picture. It can help us see colleagues as a whole person who has a life outside the office as well. And when we're storytelling, I'm thinking of things like you can say, we found this problem in our department, and this is how we overcame it. So and so did this, so and so did that. And as a team, we came and we achieved this great thing. Story sharing is how we connect emotionally with things. And instead of just being cogs in the wheel, it helps us be seen as whole people. Next, you want to highlight the person. Consider having regular staff profiles. And these can be in newsletters, intranets, whatever communication platforms you have. Some people have Slack channels. I know we use LibChat and things like that. And when you're doing these staff profiles, you want to use it as a spotlight on the person. This can be an interview, where you have some stock questions that you ask everyone. You can do a narrative profile where you have someone tell a story about something they achieved. Or you can just do, silly worksheets asking fun questions. But always throw back to work with the idea of, what one project are you most proud of? Or what did you achieve and how did that make you feel? This can help you get to learn, who your colleagues are as people. They're not just colleagues, they are people. They have stuff going on. And it also gives you a chance to see and engage with your colleagues, both inside and outside of work. You never know, if someone says I ran a marathon, holy cow, maybe you might be able to start, a running group and you'll go running during your lunch break. Or maybe you have a bunch of people who like knitting and they can, knit something together and, just create a knitting circle. You never know what you're going to uncover when you ask people about themselves and to brag about themselves. And speaking of bragging about themselves, you want to share achievements. And again, this is where those office communication platforms come in. So when you're sharing achievements, you want to think of things like major projects completed, numbers from departments like, X number of books cataloged within a month, milestones for an organization. I used to be the head of our Stacks inventory project, and I had a public LibGuide where I was constantly stating, we've now cataloged this number of books. We've now cataloged this number of books. We sent this number of books to our offsite storage. We're 3/4 of the way done with this project. And it was a way to brag about just how much work our team was getting done. And we can also share things like conference presentations and publications from our staff. We do this in our internal monthly newsletter, and we link out to those things wherever we can. If it's a free conference, we share the link for people to register so that they can see their colleagues' work. If they've presented in a catalog or in a journal we have access to, or an OA journal, we share out that link so our colleagues can read the work of our, what they're doing here at our university. Whenever they send out an email for our university-wide newsletter, I am constantly, promoting my colleagues who have given me permission to be like, so-and-so presented here. This is what it meant for our profession. This is what it meant for our university. And the reason we do this is, one, we at the library are awesome. And two, it reminds people outside of the library how awesome we are. And you can do this with work-related achievements. If someone's damn proud that they ran a marathon, ask to share that. If someone had a new baby and they want to brag about how adorable their new kid is, because kids are always adorable, ask to share that. You never know what someone's going to be proud of. And this can create a connection between our colleagues that goes beyond just the work that needs to be done in the office. Then you can request help. So this is just putting call outs for help. And this is mostly for those in upper management or in supervisory position, for things that people within your organization can volunteer or opt in for. So if you've got projects that you need staffed, ask for help. If you've got initiatives you want to try within your organization, see if people want to volunteer. That helps you get away from the idea of going back to the same people over and over again. And that way we're, distributing the work and giving people a chance to work outside of their normal area. And it can also encourage staff to take on new things if they have the bandwidth, or, they can say, you know what, I can't do it now, but I'd love to be a part of that team later. And this lets staff say, yes, I am good at other things and I want to do it. This also has cross-departmental benefits, and it reduces silos, because if you're putting together members of your organization from across different areas to work on one team, they're going to start talking about their work, and they're going to see where some workflows can be fixed and where efficiencies can be found. And it also provides a change of pace in the work. We all while some of us really do like working on the same stuff every day, that's not the case for everyone. And this gives them a chance to break out of their usual everyday routines. And then you want to share opportunities. So forward opportunities for growth to your staff and your colleagues. So if you see calls for content, calls for presentations, calls for volunteers, forward them on. Send it to the people with those skill sets and tell them why you think they would be awesome at that. Because a lot of people will see those things, and then imposter syndrome will rear its ugly head, and people think, well, maybe I'm not the best for that. You know what? If you send them the opportunity and then say why you think they would be great at that, that helps curb a little bit of that imposter syndrome. And finally, you want to show up. Whenever you can, inside and outside of the office, show up to cheerlead. If you can't show up in person, send cards, or congratulatory emails. A lot of people like being noticed and recognized. And a simple email, when someone says, hey, I had my conference proposal accepted, and you responding with, that's fantastic, that's, great, how can I support you? They love that encouragement. And this helps strengthen the connections between colleagues and between employees and supervisors. And while we can do these things, there are some common hurdles. And again, some of this work must be opt-in or handled delicately. Like I said previously, some people just do not like to be talked about by others, and you have no business asking why. If someone says, I have no interest in that, walk away. It's as simple as that. There's going to be plenty of other people who would love for you to promote what they do. So the first common hurdle is safety. Someplace, depending on your organization, there can be workplace trauma, both from the organization and from individual supervisors. Some people just do not feel safe opening up at work. They've had fear of what has happened before. Some people have promoted themselves and then been told, oh, no, we don't do that here. And if you tell someone enough, oh, we don't do that here, they stop talking, and it creates this unsafe environment. So first you have to look at your organization. Audit yourself as a supervisor, if you're a supervisor, and your workplace. And this can be done through anonymous surveys, through private meetings. Just get a sense of how people feel to be working in that environment, particularly when it comes to promoting themselves. And then show why your employees' skills are needed and valued. Connect your individual employee or colleague's work to the organization's overall goals. Creating that connection can help them see just how valued they are within an organization. Then you want to invite people in. Have an open door policy and have targeted invitations for talking with your colleagues and, if you're a supervisor, with your employees. Whenever you can, build in opportunity for rewards and praise. Start, small, work your way up. And as people realize, oh, I'm not getting punished for sharing my achievements, I'm getting rewarded for it. It makes it easier for them to do it again, and it makes it easier for others. There's usually one or two people who are happy to play the bellwether in this organizational change. And once they start to see, oh, okay, this is working, everyone else will come along. And whenever you can, give opportunity. Don't punish, but provide opportunities for growth and strength. So if something didn't go well, instead of saying, this didn't work, I'm taking that project away from you, ask, how can I provide support? Do you need training? Do you need tools? Do you need funding? What you want to fix is the outcome, not the person. So focus again on how we can overcome our mistakes. We are all learning. We all make mistakes. So instead of punishing someone by saying, don't do that again, or you did something wrong, provide the skills, the tools, whatever they need necessary so that the outcome is changed in the future. And then we want to be consistent and equitable. So if we are providing opportunities for one person, we need to provide those opportunities for others. And again, within the sense of safety, some people just do not like to share. And then you want to give thanks. If someone says something, give thanks that they came to you. The more you show that you are grateful and that you are thankful, the safer the work environment. So another big one of why people don't share is imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is the persistent uneasy feeling or anxiety that one has not truly achieved their success through their own hard work and skills. Essentially, they feel like a fraud. They feel like they're faking it. And at any point, someone's going to come and learn the truth about how they're not as good as you think they are. And we can all feel this at times, and it's worse for some than others. And while we can't fix the feelings of imposter syndrome, we can help alleviate some of the anxiety. So the first thing is to acknowledge those feelings. We've all had them. If you're comfortable, share that in, an open setting in a meeting and be like, I thought, I was the wrong person for this project because of X. And it turns out this is what really happened. If you show that we all feel this, it makes it sort of a safer environment and people be like, okay, all right, we all feel that. When people come to you, listen. Hear why, people feel like they are not good enough. Sometimes that gives you a chance to uncover, oh, they don't feel supported or they need a little bit of skill development. And this is where you want to connect known skills to positive outcomes. So focus on the facts. You did X because of Y because you're really great at Z. Those simple things, just make it a statement of fact. And you can fight, those feelings of anxiety with evidence. You can show the tangible accomplishments that that employee has had, stating this is something you did. Look at what you did, and that can help reframe negative thoughts. It's like, I know you are feeling like X, but did you see how X led to Y? Those simple things. So show how sometimes those feelings actually had a positive outcome. And you can also write out accomplishments. This is a good thing for everyone to do because it makes those feelings, those things you thought you did actually tangible. And so I always recommend everyone once a year at the very least, write down everything you've accomplished, big or small. And once you see that list, it can help you like, yes, no, I really did do that. And so when you have those wins, celebrate them. The wins matter, small or big. So share that so people realize, yes, I did do something. And I want to note that this is an ongoing activity. Imposter syndrome does not disappear with one meeting. It doesn't. It comes and goes. Some people, they'll be great one month and really bad the next, because again, our feelings and emotions changed going with, what's happening in the office and also what's happening outside of the office. So those are just some things to think about. Next, we have self-doubt, and this is closely related to and is a part of imposter syndrome, but it can be different in that it can be individual or at the team level. It's more about the lack of confidence in a skill set or capabilities and less about that feeling of being fake or that anxiety that you feel fake. And so first, clarify what is in doubt. What is troubling this person in front of you? Are they worried about their skills? Are they worried about the possible outcome? Do they think their personality is not a fit? So just clarify first, what is this person thinking? And then provide support in the form of training or tools, wherever you can, provide those opportunities. Sometimes to fix self-doubt, you do have to improve a skill set. And then reaffirm your commitment to help. Again, you are not here to punish, but to provide support and assistance. And then you can, again, write out those accomplishments. See what you did. You got training on X, which let you do these amazing things. And so then share those positive results. See what you did. These are all amazing things. At the team level, you want to be realistic. Are you asking for something is your team being asked to do something that they can't reasonably do? Do they, not have the skill set? Do they not have the tools? For example, when I worked in my previous position, we had to close a couple of our campus libraries. And I was at one point asked, you need to close this branch library in 2 weeks. And I did the math and I said, that's just not possible. You are setting my team up to fail because we physically cannot move that many books. So what I'm asking for is, support, outside for someone else to physically move the books. And so making sure that you're protecting your team at the team level can help erase some of those feelings of self-doubt. So don't be afraid to ask for help or resources for your team. And that can get around to negotiating some office politics. And office politics are all the behaviors and activities that lead to these hierarchies of power and spheres of influence. And this may be tied to an actual chain of command within your organization, or it may be some people just creating their own sphere of influence. Like some people, they think this is my realm, no one else may touch it. And that's just happened. So the first thing to remember is you are an umbrella, you are not a sieve. Protect your team. Sometimes you have to take the big leap on behalf of your team. You know, Sometimes you have to protect your team by helping them negotiate things. Everyone knows the bad eggs and knows how to work around them. And sometimes you just can't fix things, but don't cascade that negativity down. You are there to protect your team. You want to set your team up for success. And you can do this in a myriad of ways, but the first thing to think about is a buddy system or an interdepartment mentoring. If you've got a new employee, pair them up with an employee that's been there for a while so they can learn the ins and outs of your department or your overall organization. Introduce people to allies in other departments. Like if you think two people would have a great working relationship, but they haven't met yet, set them up, set them up for an office coffee date. Do not express jealousy or negativity yourself. If you start playing the office politics game, others are going to think, oh, that's how things work here. You want to stay neutral in negative situations. Work the problem, not the person. That's how you need to frame things. And overall, you want to focus on inclusion and collaboration. Don't exclude people. Simply, again, work the problem, not the person. And sometimes, you just got to explain the reality, but then also provide ways to cope. And you're doing the hard part for your team. So for example, if another manager in your organization stonewalls you on a project, you do the pushing back on behalf of your team. You do the follow-up, you do those hard meetings. Don't farm it out to someone with lesser power because that creates a power imbalance that they're not going to be able to overcome. And it might make them think that they don't have the skills to actually get the project done. You can also work your formal and informal networks on behalf of your team. If you have any sort of power within your organization, use it to help others, particularly those you supervise. You want to encourage positive and open communication. More communication can help alleviate, those fiats that seem to be imposed by office politics. And you have to be realistic. In the worst case scenario, you might need to call in HR or, your C-suite level, depending on your organization. They are there for a reason. Don't let one bad egg ruin a whole department or organization. And then this is where the hurdle of logistics comes in. You need deep knowledge of an organization in order to navigate it well. Some people just don't know the what, the who, the how of how an organization works. And this is particularly true the larger your organization is. And logistics are all those little details, workflows, and processes you need to have a sense of to do well in your workplace. And a lot of this knowledge comes with time, and you as a manager are in a position to share that with your team. If you're new, you have the opportunity to ask questions that others feel like you can't. Use that newness to be like, hey, I'm new here. How does X work? It's that simple. So you are the first step. Make it clear to people that they can come to you with anything and you can get the ball rolling. Make connections and introductions. Connect people wherever you can so that eventually they can take that work on their own. And if at all possible, a lot of this can come down to paperwork. What are your decision trees? What are your workflow pathways? Show how it all works. Show how decisions are made, who does what and why. Simply having an idea of, oh, so-and-so catalogs this collection can be useful. Provide material support whenever you can. So whether it's tools, resources, time, whatever, provide that logistical support for your team. And then a lot of our organizations are not static, they change. You can provide direction through that change. Offices change all the time. You can be, sort of the guide to help your team through this. Be consistent, so that your team knows I can always go to my supervisor or I can always go to this colleague. If you provide the consistent spot in vague periods, it can help everyone. And then you want to follow up and check in. If you knew you helped someone with something, follow up a little bit later, be like, did that work? What can I do next? And the benefits of this promoting others is both personal and organizational. So on the personal level, it can reduce imposter syndrome. Being recognized helps people feel less fake, and that can boost their confidence. They get to the position of, oh, yeah, I can do this. And that can be self motivating. One win leads to others, which can again help improve self motivation. And this can overall help with career pathing and exploration. Let your team members see if their future, within your specific organization is headed one way, or if they want to change things and try something else in that career field. And this can happen, through skill growth. It gives people a chance to practice new things. People are willing to take risk and learn new things if they know that those risks are going to be rewarded. And this can increase workplace happiness. People are happier when their contributions are recognized. It's that simple. At the organizational level, this promotes a person-centered workplace. People are people, they're not cogs in an organization. We want to think of people, as themselves. They're not automatons. And so doing this sort of work, you can uncover hidden talents. You never know when people have hidden skills. Someone else in your office might be a wonderful photographer, and that can come in handy if you realize all of your staff need headshots. It gives an opportunity for skill growth. People want to grow. And when good work is recognized, they want to grow more. And that can lead to workflow improvements and efficiencies because it reduces silos. It breeds an understanding of what everyone does and how they can work together. And that can lead to innovation and efficiencies. Let people make suggestions wherever they are needed and not just within siloed departments. And this can help, get back burner projects done. Someone might take on something that's just sort of been sitting around for a while because they finally have been given the chance to do that. And again, this can increase workplace happiness. People like working with other people who recognize their good work, and this can lead to increased employee retention. Recognition and acceptance matter for emotional well-being. So where do you want to work? It's just good practice to promote your team. We're all in this together. It makes the workplace more person-centered and I dare say more fun. So when you promote your team, you are creating the kind of positive environment that everyone wants to work in. And so I do have a slide for Q&A, but before I do have a couple of resources. I will be sharing these on the Zotero. And thank you for attending today. My email is on the screen and I'll pop back to this at the end of the Q&A.
Well, thank you, Megan. Thank you so much for an excellent presentation. I can see the hand claps and the hearts coming in for your presentation, and we do indeed have some questions. So we will start right at the top.
All
The
right.
first question is from Liz. It says, "Do you have any advice about I'm sorry, do you have any advice about people who really don't want attention slash promotion? What do you see as the balance between respecting their wishes, but also not leaving them behind others who are more enthusiastic about it?"
Well, there is, like you said, there is a balance. And I will say I have worked with someone who the office was the office. They didn't want to share anything. And it was that simple. And later, as we got to work together, I learned that this person had an actual diagnosed extreme anxiety when it came to personal attention. And that's it. Like you don't push it. If they want to promote themselves, they will if you've made a safe space. But when it comes to striking that balance for people who haven't really promoted themselves. Sometimes it's simple, workplace trauma. In the past, they've been punished. And so you can start small. Simply put out an email being like, hey, who wants to share a win today? And let them answer in writing. A lot of times people who are scared of sharing, it's simply they don't want the spotlight on them in an in-person meeting. And by in-person, I mean like a Zoom meeting or in like an actual in-person meeting. They don't like everyone looking at them. I used to do live theater, and even then, when I could see the audience, oh, I didn't like it. But in an email, that's a little bit easier. So if you give someone an opportunity to just be like, you want to write about, 2 to 3 sentences, make it easy. Make it simple. Someone wrote in the chat that they have a Slack channel where they've got a kudos channel. Leave that open. People will promote themselves there. Something where it's constant, but they don't feel like they're under the big open glare. And it's just sometimes that's it. They don't want it, and you just have to walk away. It can be really hard, particularly when you know they're doing great work, but that's it. And so I hope that answered that.
Okay, thank you. Um, and the next question is says, do you have any advice on how to promote employees who feel there's not a whole lot of exciting parts to their jobs, i.e., circulation desk employees, pages, etc., especially if leadership seems to only focus on work-related accomplishments?
So there are a couple of ways to do this. I think there's always something interesting about work. I used to run a team of student employees, and one of the things we would do, we would have a shelving competition. How fast can you shelve these many books? And that one was a fun project. So, it's like so and so shelved 50 books in 5 minutes. I can't actually remember what the numbers are, but finding something like that, make it a little bit of a competition, again, where people can opt in, that can be helpful. Um, Simple things like how many questions did this person at their circulation desk answer? What was the best question, that they found? How did they answer it? Simple things like that. In our outgoing library newsletter that goes out to the public, we have a section where we're like, this question got asked at the reference desk. This is how we answered it. And sometimes we put an employee name on it, sometimes we don't. It just depends. And when leadership wants to focus only on work related stuff, sometimes I like to play the role of just do it and beg forgiveness later. Like, yes, promote all the work stuff. And then maybe in the bottom say so and so ran a marathon in under 4 hours. I keep coming back to the marathon because my husband did it and I'm very proud of him. So sneak it in there when you can. Just make it a footnote. Don't make it a big thing. Don't call attention to it. But if you've made a space for it, it's then really hard to take it away. And so unless you've outright been told, no, don't do it, yeah, that's what you want to do. So ask what people find exciting about their job. This is where those staff profiles can come in. You never know what people are going to find interesting.
Excellent. Thank you for that response. Um, the next question is, what are your thoughts on expertise directories, gathering the skills slash expertise staff feel they have? This can be really positive, um, promote, yet can also build some competitiveness in the person who's asking the questions experience. And it doesn't always unearth the growth slash stretch task a person wants to build. How can we use these well if we can?
This is great. So I'm actually in the Washington Research Library Consortium. It's 9 universities here in DC, and we actually have a sharing expertise committee, and they created one of these directories, and it works okay. And the reason I say that is we all opted in, again, make it opt in, and we dumped in our skills. And I haven't seen anything out of it yet. It might be my skills aren't what other people want, or it could simply be we're not remembering to check it. But when it comes to these directories, I always recommend having two things. And this is one thing our directory did well. Things you are good at, where you can say, yes, I'm very good at these things, and list it out. And then another one, things I'm learning. And then you can have a third category, depending on your organization, things I want to learn. And the reason that third one I'm kind of iffy on is it depends on your organization. If under things I want to learn, you list something that's a part of your job description, people get scared. But we don't all know everything we need to know for our jobs. We're always learning. So if you have a column where it's like, this is what I'm an expert at, or this is what I'm a novice at, but I'm learning, that can help people develop these things. And then you as a supervisor, you have to regularly go in to be like, can I pair this skill that someone wants to learn with someone who's an expert in it? And again, that's where you're making connections. A lot of your work as a supervisor or a manager is simply logistics of connecting people to the things they need. When you have a new project coming up, going into that skill directory, and yes, getting the people who are really good at it, but also maybe adding one or two people in who are learning so that they can learn on the job. It's providing those opportunities, because unless there's like a drop dead deadline, it doesn't really matter if the project takes an extra week. Let's be honest about it. Not all deadlines are actually hard deadlines we need to worry about. And so if you can give the opportunity for someone to learn a skill on the job, that not only gives them a chance to practice that skill, but it connects them to it. So yes, these directories can be a mixed bag, but I do recommend, if you have it, use it often and demonstrate it so it becomes routine.
Okay. And we'll go to the next question, and it's probably is an easy one. Can you please share the link to your slides?
Yes, I think I have to jump out to do it, but yes.
Okay, thank you. And while you are doing that, I'll get the next question geared up. Um, and that question is from Tim Hayes. Says, how can you best promote an employee's accomplishments after an organizational shift in priorities, i.e., if they piloted a program that got cut because of a grant not being renewed or a new leadership vision resulting in new operational priorities?
There's a lot to that one. So I'm gonna have to,
Take
and
it.
I was, yeah.
I'm happy to reread it too if you need me to.
Yeah, no, how can you best promote an employee's accomplishments? So I just say constantly talk about your staff and say, while this program may have got cut, these were the skills that came out of it. So focus on, yes, while the program may have gotten cut, what are the modular skills that can translate to something else? So if someone say, finished up a project where it was cataloging your stacks, what did they learn out of that? Was it, how to reach a deadline? Was it how to project manage? Was it how to connect people? Was it how to work with vendors? What are the modular skills that can translate to other projects? So focus on the skill set, not the end program. Yes, you can say this is the program they worked on, but focus on the skills when you're promoting it to new leadership.
Okay. And then Caitlin asks, how do you deal with an employee who sees their work as part of the collective team and doesn't want it to be highlighted as individual work, even if it's truly work worth highlighting?
So a couple times this can just be shyness. The person doesn't want to stand out. Again, it's that imposter syndrome. They're afraid that the light shining on them might reveal that they're fake. Um, I would work very closely with that employee to ask, is there a reason you don't want me to share? I'm happy not to share. You don't have to answer, make it an opt-in thing. You always have to create that safe space. But again, some people, they just don't want it. They don't want the spotlight on them. And we can't force it. That makes it worse. It might cause them to retreat into a shell. Or you can say, is this something where you can set up where you can say, this is the overall thing that the team accomplished. These were the individual contributions, and you call everybody out so that everyone's sort of on equal footing as opposed to one employee being called out over everybody else. And again, it depends on the person. Some people, they just don't want it. They want to work and that's it. And it can be really hard to just be like, okay, I won't share it, but you can see them. You can reward them. You can be like, you know what? How can I recognize this? Ask them how they prefer to be rewarded for that. Ask them. It's that simple. Ask what they want.
Okay. And we're going to get to as many of these questions as time will allow. The next question is, any suggestions on concrete strategies for work the problem, not the person?
So a lot of times when it comes down to work the problem, not the person, it's usually one person is kind of stonewalling things. Okay, but why are they stonewalling it? What's the problem here? Are they afraid that, they're going to be taken off a project, or are they afraid their team's going to be taken away? So one, you can work the problem there and, just sort of remind them, nope, we value you for your expertise. This is your departmental thing, whatever it is. Just remind them that you're not trying to take their job. Another thing when it's work the problem, sometimes people are incredibly defensive because they recognize it's that self-doubt that they don't actually have the skill necessary to work on what you are asking them to work on. So the problem there is training. Say, oh, we can offer this training. Don't make it a call out of you are lacking in this. Just say we're providing training opportunities in this area. Or is it simply they don't have the tools and resources, so that's why you're shutting them, they're shutting you down. So provide the tools and resources. So you see what is the problem that is causing that behavior? Because there are some people who are bad eggs and they're just simply hard to work with. And again, that's where you call in the C-suite and HR. But it's finding out what the core issue is. Is it logistical? Is it training? Is it money? And work that. Don't say this one person we need to fix. And I hope that answered it. It's that phrasing comes out of Apollo 13, which is one of my favorite movies. But back in the day, NASA was, you worked the problem. How do we fix this problem? With what tools do we need to fix it? And so that's how I want you to think about it. It's people, yes, can be the problem, but more often than not, there's something behind it that's causing that, disruptive behavior.
So next question is, what do you do when you want to promote your employees to higher positions and pay, but there are limited opportunities at your organization?
So one, if you are in the position to pay them more, it's as simple as that. Promoting them to higher positions, this is the academic library conference. I would say maybe recognize there are other positions on campus. So you're still retaining their skills. You would lose them within the library, but you could promote them somewhere else on campus. Sometimes to promote someone, you have to send them elsewhere. It's that simple. At some point, we all cap out. There are only so many positions within an organization. Um, and so I have been in the habit of, when I see a really good job description for a colleague, I'll send it to them and be like, I don't want to lose you, but just thought you should see this opportunity that I think you would be good for. If you are at all in a position to make the case to upper management to be like, so-and-so is remarkable, we need to pay them more, do it. That's where you have to do the legwork. And you can sort of say, if we lose them, it's going to cost us more money. It always costs more money to hire and train a new employee than it is to retain an employee who's been there. And so you can make that economic case of, if we pay them 10 grand more a year, we're saving money, as opposed to if we lose them and have to hire and retrain someone new for that position. Um, you know, Sometimes, like I said, in libraries, there's only so many positions. There's one library director, there might be two AULs. Again, it depends on your organization. Sometimes you can do a title change and that's enough for people. But if you can just tweak things a little bit, tweak their job descriptions or give them a student employee so they have help, that's another way. So you sometimes have to get creative. But again, this is organizational dependent. It depends on not only your library, it depends on your university.
Okay, here's one more. I would love to hear about how advocating for higher pay fits into this model that you presented.
Pay is always the hard one. We have this horrible problem of promoting people to management as a reward for good work, and they're not actually, the best fit for that management position. So I always advocate, pay people more for the good work they do in the position they are in. The problem with this is usually no other organization sees it this way. It is very hard to say, I want this person to stay exactly where they are because that's where they're happy. That's what they excel at. We should give them a lot more money, even if it means these pay bands are all over the place. Unfortunately, this is where I just say higher ed paying, or, higher ed salaries, higher ed job structures, it's just broken. It's a systemic issue that unfortunately we at the library are going to have a lot of difficulty fixing. So I would say, if you have any say over who gets paid and how they get paid, just pay your good employees more money. It's that simple. And this can be hard, but you can advocate for more money. If you are in management, particularly if you're a library director, part of your number one job is to simply just hold on to as much money as you can to retain your good employees. And I, it's difficult. It's an impossible ask, and I know that. But the best thing we can do is, particularly for upper management, is advocate for our good work outside of the library. Libraries are really good at promoting themselves to each other and, promoting their programs and their services and things like that. But when it comes to promoting their own employees, we're not very good at it. We might recognize a staff member of the month or things like that. But what we need to be doing is advocating up and advocating out to be like, the people are what make the library work. We're not bots. We're not robots. To make this work well, to retain it, retain our good staff, to keep people from burnout, we need to pay them more. And it's just academic funding is broken. It's that simple. The best we can do is keep advocating for our good work.
And I think we have time for just one more question. It says, I think this is great, but I also think this requires the supervisor slash manager to have well-developed emotional intelligence skills. I'm not in a manager role, but have been supervised by individuals who lack this skill set. What do you recommend for a supervisor slash manager whose area of growth is emotional intelligence and wants to improve on recognizing slash promoting their employees?
So this is where we come down to the Peter principle, where we tend to promote people to the point of incompetence. This is not just in libraries, it's everywhere. And essentially what happens is someone's really good at their job, so we promote them to management as a reward, but don't train them to be a manager. So first, if you're in an organization, make sure you're training your managers. I never received formal management training. I learned it by doing a lot of reading, by learning on my own, going to webinars, tutorials, things like that. I've never been formally trained as a manager, and I'm wondering if anyone on this call, did you ever go through formal management training? My husband is now a manager. He's been a manager for years. He's just now going through a training academy for managing. We're just really bad at this. And so when someone is in a manager role and needs to work on their emotional intelligence, this is where if you are above your regular managers, it can be useful to be like, we're sending everyone to management training. Have a, group where you get your managers together and then they read articles. If you are not in the position to control that, I would recommend there are some sneaky ways to do it. If you've got a chat thing, you can just drop in, hey, read this interesting article about EQ. Don't make it, a thing, but just keep dropping that sort of thing. A lot of university libraries have article clubs, and you can sort of, if it's your turn to pick an article that would relate to EQ and management and things like that. If you have a good relationship with your manager, this is where it can be useful to just say like, hey, I have a concern that I'm not being heard. You can go and sort of start that conversation. It can be a little tricky, so I'm not asking anyone to do the hard work there, particularly if you're in an environment where it's not safe. But there are a couple of things you can do where it's just drop it in, make it a skill growth for everyone, and hopefully it will get to the manager. But if you're in a position to control those things, start a leadership academy now, start a learning program now. It doesn't have to be hard. It can be a once a month meeting. It can be an article you share and talk about.
Okay. Well, again, thanks to everyone who submitted a question. And, we apologize if we were not able to get to your question today, but it was a really rich, robust discussion. So, Megan, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your presentation today, and for answering the questions and answering as many of them as we could get to. It was our pleasure to have everyone here today. Before we close the session, I'd like to point out the evaluation survey that is available for you to complete. I'm certain that Megan would welcome your feedback on the presentation today. You can find the link to the evaluation when you log into Sketch. It's labeled feedback survey, and it is located directly above the session description. So thank you all again for attending, and we hope you enjoyed the presentation. If your question was not answered, Megan, are you open to the 3 people who didn't get their question answered? Are you open to them emailing you directly?
Yes, yes. And I will drop my email in the chat.
Okay. Well, you all have a good day. Enjoy the rest of the conference. And Megan, again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Hey, bye-bye. Oh, and someone said the link to the slide doesn't give access. So maybe you got to change the
Hang on.
access on it.
Yes, quite possibly. Trying to do that on the fly was. And thank you for catching that before we left.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Okay, well, I guess I think that they'll be ready for the next session now.
Okay, dropped it in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.